Good evening and welcome to our Tuesday, April 14th Town Council meeting. We're going to go ahead and start with a work session, though, on the Midland Design Guidelines. And we've invited Planning and Zoning, and we have Bill Marone here. So, and the rest of the council is in the room or online or coming in, and Jessica Hubbard's on. I see some folks, but I think this is going to be James and Carlton kind of running the show here as far as the work session, so I will turn it over to you both.
Carlton's going to run with it here.
Good evening, Council.
Actually, before you get started, also, this is a work session, so like Elise, you can come sit up here because you're going to be part of this, so everybody who's going to be part of it should be up here in the front. As long as you guys are okay. I think it's Gloria and I talked about it. You go with that, Joe?
Yeah.
Just take it. Let's get up. Let's get close.
This is a work session, not a council meeting, so we want to, the idea is we've seen it, you've seen it. We have a new council that's going to come vote on this. So we all wanted to level set on what we're going to do together. So that way the next council, when they vote on it, it's, we've all kind of been there and spoken together. That's the idea. So Carlton, sorry.
All good. Good evening, Council. Carlton Henry, Planner 2 at the Town of Basalt. I'm here this evening to introduce a work session on the Midland Avenue District Design Guidelines. We also have Jessica Hubbard from GM Shea Architects online, who will be walking you guys through the work session and presenting the draft of the Midland Avenue District Design Guidelines. Just a little bit of background for the record. This project began last summer when Town Council passed a resolution to approve a contract with GM Shea in order to perform consulting services and establish architectural design guidelines in Basalt's historic commercial core. 2025 was a milestone year in the history of Midland Avenue with the completion of the Midland Avenue Streetscape project. The development of the Midland Avenue District Design Guidelines was a natural successor to the completion of this project. The creation of the Architectural Design Guidelines seeks to implement the 2020 Basalt Master Plan goals regarding the historic character of Basalt as listed under related town statutes and/or town actions below. Over the last 9 months, the consultant team has conducted research, engaged in extensive community outreach, and produced several drafts with consideration given to feedback from staff, Planning and Zoning Commission, architecture and design industry professionals, and members of the public. At the March 10th Town Council meeting, Council considered a presentation of the design guidelines from GM Shea and requested that staff and the consultant team return for a work session at a future meeting. Council also requested that Planning and Zoning be invited to discuss the design guidelines with Council in a work session. And as mentioned, we have Bill Marin here from Planning and Zoning to provide input as well. GM Shea Architects have provided a draft of the district design guidelines for review by Town Council, and that those design guidelines are linked in the agenda as well as in this memo below. We ask that Council hear a presentation from GM Shea Architects, ask questions of the consultant and of staff, provide feedback on the drafted design guidelines, and I'll just add that a final draft of the design guidelines and a resolution will be presented at a future meeting for Council approval. With that, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, I will hand it over to Jessica. Great. Go ahead, Jessica. You are muted, by the way.
Okay, great. Yeah, I wasn't sure if there were any questions. Can everyone hear me okay / see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, yes, thank you, Council, for having me this evening. I apologize, I'm not in person, but I'm very honored to be here and to present the design guidelines to you. Tonight, we are going to dig in a little bit deeper into what the guidelines specifically entail. And I know most of you have heard this presentation before, so I will try to give the background just a few minutes, but for those that are new to the project, we're just going to talk about the history and what design guidelines are really quickly, and then we'll dive into the draft itself. So for those of you that have not met me, my name is Jessica Hubbard. I'm an architect, planner, and principal of GM Shea, and we'll dive in. Okay, so for those of you that are not familiar with what the project is, as Carlton gave a background, we were contracted by town planning to develop design guidelines for what we determined as the Midland Avenue District. So the district aligns with the C2 Downtown Business District in the zoning, and then most properties that are fronting Midland Avenue. And we have a map that I'll get to in the next slide. So here you can see the district boundary, all of the buildings that are within the hatched blue region are buildings that will be upheld to the design guidelines. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, I'm sure, but the small orange circles represent what we're calling contributing buildings. And we'll get more into that when we talk about section 2. So what are design guidelines? As you've heard and as we've discussed many times with planning and zoning and with council on March 10th, design guidelines are policies. We are thinking of them as an overlay to the existing zoning. They specifically describe architectural styles, features, and characteristics that essentially define what basalt is. So for any new development or existing buildings that are purchased by an owner, a new owner, basically these guidelines are going to help them craft making more basalt and contributing to what basalt's sense of place is. And so they really are a planning tool. They're a proactive planning tool, and they'll be upheld by town planning staff or the commission through site plan and building permit review. And then just why design guidelines? As Carlton mentioned, 2025 was a large year for basalt with the Midland Avenue Streetscape project. And so the design guidelines will really support, again, creating more basalt, celebrating the culture of Midland Avenue. It'll also provide a framework for the planning department so that as development comes down the valley, as new owners are coming into town, new applicants, they will have a framework to look to for when they are building new developments or altering existing buildings. And the guidelines help town planning and or the Planning and Zoning Commission, council, property owners make informed decisions about these potential projects. And then also we, in these guidelines, are encouraging preservation of some of basalt's most unique and historic buildings. And those are what we're referring to as the contributing buildings that we are encouraging preservation of. And then this, we always like to highlight this in each presentation. This came from a resident of Basalt, just asking what really makes Midland Avenue special. And when you think about Midland Avenue, you think about the vibrant colors, the playful roof lines. Most of the buildings are either 2 or 3 stories, which means they're designed to human scale. They're not like a huge skyscraper making you feel like a small ant when you're walking on the street. Midland Avenue really is designed to scale to human scale. It also has an inviting, walkable street environment. And then there's a ton of connection to history and nature, with Basalt being a railroad town. There's a lot of history and connection to why Midland Avenue is the way that it is today. And then just to highlight that characteristics like this, playful roof lines, vibrant colors, the scale of buildings, creating inviting walkable streets comes from storefront at the ground level. These are all characteristics that are driven by zoning, but they're reinforced by the design guidelines. So digging into the guidelines themselves, we have divided the guidelines into 7 sections. So we'll start with the introduction section, and then we'll dig into the meat of the guidelines, which is the existing buildings and the new construction, And then we'll conclude with sustainable design and the review processes in chapters 6 and 7. So section 1, this is truly an introduction to how to use the guidelines, the history of basalt, and what to expect in the design guidelines. So for example, just to put this project flow diagram to use, for example, I'd like you all to think about what if a new owner comes into the town of Basalt and they purchase the Alpine Bank. So they'd start at the top rectangle, so the project located in Midland Avenue District, yes. Step 1, does the project involve an existing building? Yes, Alpine Bank is existing. 2, is the building historic? Yes, we are considering that building a contributing building. So then we'd follow that line all the way down to see section 3.2, working on contributing buildings. And then we do have a subsection of is the building restorable, but I don't think we need to get into that during this work session unless council requires we dig into that. So anyway, just using that as an example of how to use the guidelines. Obviously, if a owner came in and purchased a parcel of land, I'm not sure where, that does not have an existing building, we would consider that new construction, and then they would be directed to section 5, architecture and new construction. So then moving on to section 2, this section we really dive into the history and character of Midland Avenue. So what architectural styles and periods of significance developed from the history of basalt. And this section and chapter 3 really stemmed from whether or not to designate the Midland Avenue District as a National Historic Landmark District. And what that means is that it would be registered with the National Park Service, and it would adhere to the Secretary of the Interior standards, most of the buildings that are contributing. And so since that has not been formalized, this is the next best way to preserve some of these existing buildings that are so cherished by the entire town. And so in order to identify those contributing buildings, we also had to identify certain periods of significance. And if you're not familiar with that term, it's essentially a time frame in the context of historic preservation. So you're most likely familiar with the false front commercial period of significance, or the Queen Anne revival. Those are probably the top 2 that you're most familiar with buildings around basalt. And then diving in a little bit deeper of what is in section 2, we then took these periods of significance and we broke down in alignment with History Colorado, which is our state historic preservation office. We broke down the history of these periods of significance, and then we also identified common features so that, say, an individual comes in and wants to create more of a 19th century commercial building, or wants to restore or recreate false front commercial, they have some of those common features. And then finally, we outlined the contributing buildings. So these are the cherished buildings. These are buildings that if we ever wanted to, we could apply for these buildings to be listed on the National Register, because right now there are not many protections for these buildings. An individual or company or whoever could come in and purchase these buildings, and there's no protection that it's beyond just town planning. So naturally, if we're going to designate contributing buildings, we need to talk about how to treat these existing buildings. So in section 3, we begin to outline types of existing buildings. So this is where we define historic, contributing, non-contributing, and non-historic, because there is a difference. We then go into the recommended treatments of historic features, and this all comes from the Secretary of the Interior standards. So preserve, repair, replace, reconstruct, those are the 4 types of treatment. So a lot of this is in direct alignment with the National Park Service. And then we also go into discouraged treatments. Naturally, demolition is a very large discouraged treatment for historic buildings. But then we talk about exterior alterations, additions, and then treatments of some of these details. So foundations, windows, historic doors, roofs, materials, things like that. And so tonight, the format is a little different than our presentation on March 10th. I really wanted council to see how the guidelines align directly with the checklist for an applicant. And so the checklist is divided into two sections. It's essentially existing and new construction. And so I've included a snip here for you all to see. We have different line items. So site, foundation, window and window openings, doors, roofs, and then other. And then when you dig into the guidelines, you start to see that those line items are tied directly to the guidelines. So here we have where we talk about the work on contributing buildings, the different types of treatments, and then we start to talk about historic sites. Again, this comes directly from the Secretary of the Interior standards. So for example, if someone wants to come and purchase the Alpine Bank and they want to move it, that is not recommended or allowed per the Secretary of the Interior standards. So just trying to layer in some of those parameters for historic buildings. And then you all saw this last time, but just some more diagrams of how to treat historic doors and entries. So you can see in this diagram on the left, the top left, we're showing the window proportions. Original window openings have been reduced from 2 single hung windows to 1, but we're still maintaining the same proportions. And then similarly on the bottom, you can see that there used to be a door here, but in the process of infilling it, now the proportions are the same. It's just been turned into a wall. So, and then on the right-hand side here is an example of how to treat historic roofs. At the top, the historic roof has not been altered. That's acceptable. In the middle, dormers have been added to the rear elevation. That's acceptable. But what's not recommended is a front gable dormer has been added to the primary elevation and dominates the facade. So again, just thinking about and showing design characteristics that tie back to the historic nature of the contributing or non-contributing building. And then I just wanted to show one more example of how we're thinking about what's acceptable, what's not permitted. So you can see here on the original building, now the alteration, there's an appropriate awning that's been added, but if you see in the not permitted diagram that awning is slightly too large and it's covering the brick recess or the brick sign panel. And then similarly, you can see that the original cornice was kept in the acceptable version, but removing the cornice is not permitted. So again, small details that are acceptable and non-acceptable. So moving on, in section 4, this is now applying to new construction. And in this section, we are focusing on anything with the site. So compatible infill, parking, landscaping, signage, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, overhangs and awnings, arcades and galleries, really focusing on those design elements that contribute to a site and not necessarily the design of the building. And then looking at the checklist again, you can see that the line items directly correlate with the sections. So in this checklist, we have a line item for site design, compatible infill, parking and curb cuts, landscaping, fencing, and overhangs. And then moving on to show you some of the diagrams. So here we have compatible infill. This just shows, we have more diagrams, but you can see here in the diagram on the bottom where the building that is extremely recessed is not allowed. And a lot of this overlaps with zoning, but just to show a diagram of what's expected and what will contribute to a walkable and inviting streetscape. And then we're also identifying that we prefer when the facades align, and also aligning with zoning that there is a 0 lot line, so 0 foot setback from the property line. And then here we're showing just appropriate and not appropriate awning treatments. So you can see up here in the top right where the awning is covering a part of the building and extending past the opening. That's not acceptable, whereas we would prefer that the awning is broken up, or if it's extending over a piece of the building, that piece of the building is a max of 2 feet. And so these are proportions and design elements that we've studied, and we came up with some of these parameters for how to make more basalt. And then keep in mind that, again, everything that we're talking about in section 4, 5, and 6, well, 6 could be for existing. 4 and 5 are for new buildings. So anything that's already existing on Midland Avenue is essentially grandfathered in unless they were to apply for any alterations moving forward. And then here's another example of one of our diagrams showing arcade treatment and dimensions. So it's recommended that the arcade is 10.5 feet minimum, that the arcade is minimum 60% of the overall length, just so that it doesn't feel too short. The bulkhead is what this is called. The area under the storefront is 18 inches minimum. So again, just small guardrails to help contribute to making more basalt. And then here is a snip from our sign matrix. We start to build on what's already in the zoning code. So we go into the different types of signs, and then so a wall or projecting that layers in with what's existing into the zoning code, but then we go and define a wall sign versus a sign band versus a blade sign, a vinyl decal, what percentage is allowed, things like that. And then I just want to point out that the Town of Basalt sign application must be completed in addition to the COA checklist. So we already have some processes in place, but this, again, builds and reinforces the zoning code and what processes are already in place. And then finally, we're at architecture, which is the bulk of the design guidelines. And so here we're really digging into the details. We are outlining guidelines for windows, detailing, massing and scaling, doors, building entrances, roofs, and exterior materiality. And this is continued in the new construction checklist, and so you can see those line items align with what I just showed. So transparency, windows and window openings, doors and door openings. And then here in this column, there are specific requirements. So transparency, there's a ground floor percentage, upper level percentage, and then do the windows meet the proportion and size requirements, yes or no? And if no, the applicant would have to explain what their reasoning for that is. So here we break down some of the minimums and maximums of that transparency requirement. So how much glazing is allowed at the ground level versus on level 2 or level 3. And here you can see basically the hatch of what that transparency should be, the minimum and the maximum. And then down here, we just have some simple equations for proportions. And it looks a little scary, but if you do the math, you can actually see that there's a lot of flexibility in that, but the equation just allows for maintaining proportions. And then roof lines, it was really important for our team, and we received this feedback from a lot of our survey results, that the playful roof lines is very distinct in basalt. And so we created some guidelines around how to recreate that. So if there's a roof plane change, it has to be 12 inches minimum. You can see that in these existing buildings on Midland Ave, it's currently 4.5 feet. Similarly, on the other side, it's 40 inches and there's a 12-inch minimum. So it's a guardrail, it's very small in comparison to what's actually on Midland, but it just ensures that we can maintain playful roof lines. And then this is pretty text heavy, but essentially we dig into encouraged materials. So peach blow brick is a vernacular material to the valley. Novelty siding is a material that is, it's part of the periods of significance. So Queen Anne, Victorian, and false front commercial both have novelty siding traditionally, or wood siding. However, wood siding is prohibited in accordance with an ordinance in the zoning code. So exterior cladding shall be composed of fire retardant and non-combustible materials such as et cetera, et cetera. And then we also have some requirements around storefront windows. So the minimum exterior mullions must be 1 inch. Exterior muntins must be 3/4 of an inch, which essentially we're talking about what's dividing the panes of glass in the storefront. And then again, I had put this in another diagram, but the bulkhead, there's a min and a max suggestion, and then materiality around doors. So wood, aluminum storefront, or composition panelized design is encouraged. And then section 6 is pretty small, but it's very straightforward. Here we are talking about just recommendations for applicants and owners on how to make their building more sustainable. So we go into different types of green certifications that they could pursue. And then here in this diagram, we try to do an all-in-one showing what sustainable strategies you could implement into your building and how you could treat that, especially if it's a contributing building. So where your solar panel array could go, where your bike rack should fall, where awnings could be, and then how you can control solar heat gain, things like that. And then finally, so review process, this is where we talk about the certificate of appropriateness checklist, which we've been talking about for the duration of this presentation. But then we also have another flow diagram of when you need a COA. Essentially, if your project's located in Midland Avenue, you will need to fill out the checklist and submit the application. And then once you have an approved COA, then you can proceed to site plan review and or building permit. And then in this section, we also talk about appeals to the design guidelines. So any building types that may not apply, such as a monumental building, as we've discussed before, like the library would be an example of a monumental building that are typically civic or institutional in nature. And then there's also a few sentences about form that applicants could fill out if they feel that their design should not or does not meet the design guidelines. And then this was asked about on March 10th, so we just threw this in here, the glossary of terms. So I'm sure I've said a few things tonight that some of you are not familiar with. So if any of those questions come up as an applicant is reviewing the guidelines, they can head to section 8, and there are a lot of definitions here and diagrams too. And then just wanted to remind council that this process was very extensive with the community. We hosted 2 open houses. We were consistently posting on Let's Talk Basalt for those that were unable to attend our in-person sessions. We met with planning and zoning, and we also attended the farmers market to get the word out about the project at the beginning. So we've gotten extensive feedback from the community and from town planning staff, and we feel very strong that this has been a community-centered approach from the beginning. And then you all saw this on March 10th, but this just gives you a timeline of how we got here. So we were at the farmers market, we conducted a survey, then we came up with the first draft, which we presented at the open house number 1. We had draft number 1 boards that were posted on Let's Talk Basalt. Then we revised and came back with draft number 2. We presented draft number 2 to Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the second open house. And then we took all of that feedback and compiled we had 2 versions of draft number 3 because we also got some feedback on Let's Talk Basalt. And some of the commissioners gave us feedback as well. And then that brings us to the P&Z Commission recommendation to Council on February 17th. We continued to work on the draft. That was up on Let's Talk Basalt. And then we now have the final draft, which all of the diagrams and all the information that you saw tonight is part of that final draft. And then you all saw me on March 10th, and here we are on April 14th. So the next steps have not changed. I look forward to discussing. Sorry I took a little bit longer, but hopefully we have some good time to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. Otherwise, the next step remains the same. The team is requesting a resolution for adoption at a future meeting. And I'll open it up to the floor for questions.
Thanks, Jessica. Every time we go through this, I learn something new in this space, so appreciate it. What questions or comments do you all have?
Well, I wanted to make a comment that goes way, way back. Because I've been on.
Turn that mic.
I've been on Planning Commission for a while now, and I participated in 3 master plans, chairing 2 of them. And in every single one, the subject of small town character or community character was the major subject to everyone in every public outreach from the very beginning. And everything that people complain about for every large project we have ever seen, downtown or not. And so, you know, with that being of such a high importance to the electorate at large and the citizen body at large, there has been in the past a lot of pressure for the town to institute design review boards, which, having worked in development in mountain towns for 30 years, those are just a nightmare to deal with. And they can and sometimes do get co-opted in strange and funny ways. And Aspen does it, Telluride does it, Mammoth Lakes does it, and I've dealt with all of those boards. And they don't really function as intended, but people feel like, oh, they're there doing their thing, but they make development really, really painful. And you get results that the community doesn't necessarily like, and it's more impedimenta to the process. But the thing about this design review guidelines that I, as an architect working in the community for a long time, have felt is useful is it's very prescriptive. You can look at it and know what you can do, what you can't do. It's been through a rigorous public process, so it's very defensible. Is it always the best design? No. Is it a pain in the ass? Yeah. But for a lot of people coming here, they come here for downtown. And we even have a similar process in Willits. It's different because Willits is different, but you know, I think it's really useful, and it's simpler than it seems for the staff to administer. And it's simpler for the Planning Commission to deal with, because you have prescriptive rules, just like with our master plan. It's very clear what we wanted, and it's very easy to judge a project before us based upon those criteria. And those criteria are all vetted by the community, so you have something to stand on. So that's why, you know, for us as a board, this is a very useful tool.
Thank you for your comments. Yeah, I tend to agree. You want something that's going to define and help people, but if it's too constrictive, and not just prescriptive, but, you know, constricts people and their ability to get things done and makes it painful, then
Yeah.
why, you know, that's not what we want to do. And I agree. I don't think this does that.
And design review boards can be fairly capricious. You know, HPC in Aspen can be a real pain in the ass. And this wouldn't be like that. You know, it's not like you're going in front of a board who, you know, may dislike you for other reasons, or, you know, like Hark and Telluride, which has political concerns. and, you know, or Mammoth Lakes kind of backed off of theirs and went more to a prescriptive planning department-based process as opposed to a board, which, you know, I had been in front of that board a number of times and you couldn't figure out what they wanted. So that's why this is useful.
What else? What other thoughts and comments with this?
Well, Bill's touched on a lot of things I was gonna say. I think that small town character has always been a negotiation at every level, and people have different definitions of what that is. For me, it's, especially with Midland Avenue, it's the scale, it's the simpleness, it's the organic nature of it, it's well-balanced. And it stayed that way for a long time, and then in the last 10 years, the changes have accelerated significantly, and some of them were, took a long time to resolve. And I'm not talking about the replacement of the infrastructure and things like that, but just other things that were built on top of that started to enhance or potentially detract from what was a quintessential description, of a mountain town, or described as quintessential. I think that it's a multi-generational downtown, and it's taken 125 years to get to where it is, and the last 20 have probably been the most challenging, I would say. But the success of recognizing the importance of downtown Midland and the confluence of the rivers and fighting hard to keep the post office a gathering place. Someone mentioned that you'd say, well, we'd meet at the post office. People are saying now, well, we'll meet at the statue of this. So I think there's a transition that we see that could commercialize it more than it needs to be, and keep that same feeling that it's a place you return to, and that you do it multiple times over your life. We don't yet know what the full-time occupancy of the building across the street's gonna bring. So, what's next with that? I really think too that on the technical side, those are all tactical type conversations. I think the construction impacts really have to be part of that checklist. Construction management plans, schedules, planning, notifications, oversight, management of those things. To tear down and replace, you mentioned foundations. There's a groundwater issue here on this street. Things like that, below grade construction, all that stuff gets to be very complicated in a core like this. So I think that's got to be taken into consideration, and maybe P&Z can bring some expertise to the table with someone that could advise on that. But other than that, if we can keep it low impact, organic, balanced in a way that doesn't overwhelm one thing or the other, the spaces that are open now, the alleys, all the little funky places need to be maintained, stuff like that.
Thanks, Rick. Others?
This is a very minute thing, but I grew up in a historic district in a historic house, and the thing that my parents always complained about was the single pane windows and not being able to upgrade to a double pane window. And I saw in section 6 it says you should maintain the original window, and I'm all for original window shape, size, vibe, but if someone wants to update the actual window in there, I would feel fine about that.
Can you comment on that? Is that, my understanding is that would be
Yeah.
the wood and the frame and not the actual glass. The glass could be rebuilt, so to speak, but I don't know.
Exactly. So because those historic buildings are technically not registered, you could very well replace all of the windows. If a contributing building is on the National Register, then it is very difficult to get away from the single pane window. But, and maybe I should revisit the section 6 language, because that is our sustainability section, where upgrading to an energy efficient envelope would be encouraged. And so, the guidelines, honestly, this is the perfect application of having a historic quote unquote building, but also being able to upgrade it to more quote unquote modern systems and energy efficiencies.
That's a good
Great.
call out.
Yeah.
Anything else like that that we need to kind of make sure we've got baked into this before it comes back for resolution? All right, well, it's 5:46, and now we have our regular meeting.
David,
Yes.
I didn't know if you wanted to do this. I just did see some people in the audience. I didn't know if you wanted to have any public comment or anything on this,
Sure, yeah,
for
we
the work
can,
session,
yeah.
if you wanted to.
So, yeah, Laura, or I know we've had others come in since, but Laura, if you have anything, feel free to come up to the mic. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff, yeah. Sure.
Thank you, I appreciate being able to sit in and listen to this. I guess my question remains whether we're dealing with historical or design wish list. And sometimes I think that they get mixed in together. So I guess my concern is the purpose of this document, this overlay. Is it historical? Is it design wish list? Is it both? I don't know. I will say I don't think there's been rigorous community input. I've had to proactively find out where meetings are, try to find the information. I went to a meeting, the second meeting, there were 4 people there from the community. So that's my observation. And then my final one, again, since you asked, is, and I know it's been explained to me a few times, but how an overlay guideline, what the relationship specifically is to the C2 zoning. So if someone's asking, I want to do something that it's been zoned for, which comes first, I guess? Or
Like the
what that
use
process
or
is.
the, I don't know, that's like, might be a planner question to
Yeah.
answer, but.
Yeah, so these guidelines were designed with the zoning in mind and are compatible with the C2 zoning as well. So that includes uses, any kind of standards like setbacks.
So this doesn't infringe on the C2
That's
zoning?
correct.
Those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
Can you comment on the design wish list versus?
Yeah, so
overlay,
these
yeah.
guidelines, similar to our housing guidelines, are a town regulation, but it's not zoning code. Those two things are legally separate, and Jeff could probably expound upon those at length if you guys need. But so it is a town regulation, and applicants for development in the town who qualify by being in the Midland Avenue district will be required to provide documentation through the COA form that Jessica touched on and is provided as a part of the packet materials for redevelopment within the Midland Avenue district. Does that answer your question?
For me, it does. Laura, I mean, hard.
More or less,
Can you come back up? Sorry.
the COA is an interesting thing to me, and I just ask that you look at that closely. Yeah, but I got what you're saying. But the COA, I read that and I don't know. Just take a look at it.
I have one real quick hypothetical, then I think that's going to probably Laura's question and concern, is that, let's say someone bought Tempranillo, wants to build a whole new building. It has to fit into these guidelines, correct? Because it's laid in the zone district. Yet the building next door is from 1980 and completely different. And so if someone came and touched on a handful of these, maybe it's not everything, then does that supersede does this supersede the general building guidelines? That if it doesn't have the perfect brick front and a door in this way and the window in this way and a certain awning, does that mean that they have to go back and check everything in these guidelines?
So,
It's
I
like a
guess,
sig-
so I see this as like a two-part question here. So the one answer would be that if it's new construction, that it follows the new construction section of this. If it's redevelopment of an existing building, such as Tempranillo, it would follow the redevelopment section of the design guidelines. In regard to the buildings that were constructed before these guidelines were established, which, you know, there are a lot of buildings on Midland that are similar to what you're referring to, that late 20th century architecture. Those are not going to be required. You can't require folks to go back and institute architectural elements to a building that is non-contributing. And so Jessica touched on that a little bit, but the contributing buildings have a different standard for replacement. So you're not going to be required to go back and put in Victorian elements to a building that was built in 1985.
But then this would supersede just the C2C zoning. This is like redirecting the zoning, is kind of what she's asking. Like,
Ryan, actually, zoning applies, so
Okay.
zoning is really dimensional requirements and uses, right?
yep,
So the dimensional requirements and uses are limitations in zoning that would apply to a new project, that would apply to improvements to an existing project, an expansion to Tempranillo or other property that's existing. You also have the guidelines, which the guidelines have certain requirements in them. And there's a waiver process that if certain requirements don't fit the historic nature of the building, which Tempranillo and some of the other properties on Midland Avenue are designated historic through our local historic designation program. They have to be, the improvements would have to be compatible with the existing
yeah.
character and nature of the structure.
But it's an added layer
Sure.
of restriction to a building that's designated in this map.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the answer. Lauren's
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for.
It doesn't change the zoning.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah, it
change
doesn't-
zoning,
doesn't change the zoning.
but that building is gonna have to fit in. If
Yeah.
I'm going to redevelop Tempranillo right now,
Yes.
it has to fit into everything on this checklist.
Either that or get a waiver. And so
So there is a waiver process.
there is a waiver process and,
Okay.
you know, for Tempranillo, which is a historic building and fits into one of the timelines that was established in the guidelines, we wouldn't be looking to, you know, requiring brick on Tempranillo, which wouldn't fit with the time period,
But
so,
let's say you're gonna scrape Tempranillo,
yeah.
right? And take advantage of the lot.
Right?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, we can do
Yeah,
that.
you could do whatever you want. It's the C2C.
Well-
This doesn't protect the building.
No, but we have historic protections through our historic designation, and certain properties, including Tempranillo, are historically designated under the current code.
And that's separate from these design guidelines.
My only point, and what I think you're saying, is that you're adding more restriction on certain buildings. And what does the
Certain
building-
buildings get it and certain buildings don't in this overlay. We're hoping for
And so
a
what,
small town
what,
character.
yeah, so what, honestly, what do you provide for the building owner to give that up?
Well, and
Just a
actually,
rhetorical
just as
question.
clarification, all buildings get additional design guidelines, so it's not just historic buildings, it's not just certain buildings. These design guidelines apply to all buildings in the district. Or would apply if adopted.
And thank you for the feedback on the communication process, Laura. We'll talk about. All right, well, it's 5:55. We got a lot of people out there, as you guys can hear, for some of the agenda items coming up, which will be pretty exciting. Thank you, Carlton, and Jessica, and James for leading us through this. This was helpful, and looking forward to, and Bill for being here. Appreciate it, and all of you. It's good to see you. And we'll take a quick break and be back just after 6. Thanks a lot.
Oh my God.
Good evening and welcome back to Basalt Town Council. It's Tuesday, April 14th. We're going to go into our regular meeting now in a moment. Earlier tonight, we had a work session on the Midland Design Guidelines. That's completed now. And just really quick before we get going, I always give the announcement about how to join on Zoom if you are interested in that. You can go to basalt.net, look at the agendas and minutes, and find April 14th, and the link and instructions are all in there. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Pam, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Dieter Schindler.
Here.
Angela Anderson. Rick
She's here,
Stevens.
not here. Here.
Hannah Berman.
Here, not here.
Also Hanchel Dupré-Bouchard.
Here.
Ryan Slack.
Here.
And David Knight.
Here.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. They both.
All right. Next up on the agenda is the consent agenda, but I'm going to propose we modify this slightly. We are going to do items, if everyone's amenable to this, items 6A and 6B next before the consent agenda. So we have a lot of folks here for that. We're going to do 6A in the room here, the proclamation recognizing Tim Goodwin of Timbos. And then 6B is the proclamation recognizing Basalt High School coach Carl Frericks. We're going to do that as well, but we're going to take that outside once we get done with the proclamation for Tim. So we're going to go ahead and do those. So item 6A, proclamation recognizing Tim Goodwin from Timbo's Pizza. And Robbie, you can come up here and speak there or at the table.
Basalt is so fortunate to have Tim Goodwin and his family as a part of this community for the past 29 years. Tim needs no introduction, but here is Tim Goodwin.
I guess I'm sort of flabbergasted. It was quite the surprise of an honor, and I'm just glad to be one of the citizens of town. And I grew up in Carbondale and started at Pepino's when it was a Pepino's here, so I've been in that building for 40 years, and watching kids and families grow up here has just been a real special honor, and thanks for thanking me, I guess.
Yeah, well, thanks for doing what you do. I know I have an 11-year-old. Our kids go over there and hang out. You know, it's always a place to go if you want to get a slice. And I'm a progressive rock fan as well.
Nice.
So, I mean, I go in there and it reminds me of my high school years with The Rush, and you got even the deeper cuts in there at times, the Dream Theater,
Yep, exactly.
whatnot. So, no, it's pretty cool what you've got going there. And, you know, just thank you for being a part of this community for so long. We have a proclamation for you that we'll go ahead and read it and pass it around. Everybody will read a different paragraph. So, a proclamation honoring community service in the town of Basalt. So whereas the town of Basalt acknowledges that the performance of government and other social institutions is powerfully influenced by citizen engagement in community affairs, and
whereas individual citizens and citizen networks working for the common good of the community are part of special character of the town of Basalt, and keep going down.
This is a big paragraph, so.
you get the big one, Rick. I planned it that
A lot of
way.
responsibility.
Tim Goodwin and family members Julian, Jason, and Jesse have long been more than just the owners of our beloved Timbo's Pizza. Tim has served as a steadfast pillar of our community. You are right there.
Timbo's is more than a place to eat. For those fortunate enough to enjoy his tried and true recipes, it is a place for students to gather and adults to run into friends, a hot spot for delicious food, good music, positivity, friendships, and a place where the spirit of Basalt comes alive. You want me to just keep rocking?
Sure. Take us home.
The yearbooks lining the walls and photos of the sports teams he has sponsored tell quite a story better than words ever could. Each one a testament to the lives that have intersected with those doors, and they support freely given, and the support given freely to all who enter. It may take a village to raise a child, but it takes a pizza joint to raise a community.
Therefore, we, the Basalt Town Council, proclaim that on this 14th day of April 2026, the town of Basalt is a far, far better place by the role model and good deeds of Tim Goodwin and family. So, well done. All right, well, next up, we have, and we're gonna, after I read this, we're gonna go outside, but item 6B is a proclamation recognizing Basalt High School coach Carl Frericks. And we're gonna go ahead and go outside, out here, because there's a crowd out there for that. So you're all welcome to come on out.
Still not in yet.
All right, welcome back. We are back inside from our, have done our 2 proclamations for the evening. But stay tuned, there's more. Next up is our consent agenda, item 2. And I'm going to read a laundry list of things that are on that. If anybody wants to pull anything off, let me know at the end. Item 2A is resolution number 17, series of 2026. Resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving the 2026 streets maintenance chip seal project and authorizing staff to enter into contract with GMCO LLC. Item 2B is to continue to April 28th, 2026, public hearing and introduction meeting, 555 Basalt Avenue Development Application for Special Review, PUD amendments and associated development review actions for 54 commercial storage units and 47 residential units. Item 2C is an Arbor Day proclamation. Item 2D is resolution number 18, series of 2026, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, granting approval for the 2026 Basalt Sunday Market on Midland Spur in Lions Park in downtown Basalt. 2E, Resolution 19, Series of 2026, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, ratifying and approving an intergovernmental agreement for the operation, administration, and financial support of the Pickens County Regional Emergency Dispatch Center. 2F is a reappointment of Basalt Public Arts Commission member, reappointment of Liz Bell to the BPAC for a 3-year term to expire April 14th, 2029. And last, item 2G, special event activity permit, food truck at 72 Sunset Drive. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next up, we have our item 3, which is the call to the public. Just a reminder on this, if you are going to speak, you have 3 minutes, and you can address your comments directly to me. Make sure you identify yourself by name and address and sign in the back of the room. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive. Town council will make no decision or take action except to direct the town manager. And we're going to have our timer set up, and this is the last timing, maybe.
It's here.
Oh, so-
Did I ever have to do?
Yeah. So if anyone wants to come up to the podium, floor is open.
Hi.
You can start.
Okay. Hi, I'm Stacy Stokes, and hopefully I won't be here for the next couple of months because I'll be out of town. But I am here because a few years ago, we moved to a property that is on Few Lane. It's a very dangerous street. It's not even a street, it's an alley. And I'm starting to lose my mind because the accidents that I see waiting to happen are horrible. Regardless, I want to put a few requests out there to you. I can follow up with an email. I've spoken to a few neighbors, but we need a slow children playing sign. We can't have little green men that fall down in the wind. They don't do any good. We need an absolute sign saying we've got kids playing. We need a speed limit sign saying 15 miles an hour. We need a street sign that says we are Eastview Lane because people drive around in circles trying to find Eastview Lane because we look like Basalt Avenue. We need a stop sign at the end of Few Lane in Alexander where people fly right through. And let's see, the other thing is I would like to see the street at some point be made one way with a nice big 5-foot bike and safe pedestrian path that then can be used as emergency access within minutes, if need be. I just feel like we need to have a progressive vision about what we need to do with this road, because it's scary, and it's horrible, and I tell people all the time to slow down. I'm probably like known as the bitch of Few Lane by now because I walk there. But I'm scared about Mayor Woofer's kids. I'm scared, she's scared. You know she's scared. She's talked to you. And unfortunately, people have lost the decorum to take good care of each other. On to the road that was supposed to be by Big O. I'm going to implore you yet again to get with Pickens County, get with the state, get with your people here. We've got to get another access in and out of Southside and Stotts Mill. You have to. You've approved all this dense development thinking that was going to be there. It's not fair to those residents. That's grass up there. They don't have time to get out. For where I live, I can run to the river. They can't. And I guarantee you, if they got some sort of information with some evac plan, that only has one way in and one way out, they might be in this meeting too, asking you to put the road in that you were supposed to put in. And we have to find the money to keep the residents over there safe, or everything needs to stop before somebody dies, and it's gonna be a lot of people if it happens. So, that's all that I have to say. And I will stop talking at some point about this, but I think my points are valid. I think they're very important. And I don't think people pay enough attention because, like I said last time, they just want a home to raise their family in Stotts Mill, but they need to be safe at the same time. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Stacy, for your comments.
Perfect timing, too. Perfect.
Yeah, you gotta use the whole 3 minutes. All right,
Speaking, please.
anyone else? Anyone else like to come up and speak for public comment? All right, anybody online? I don't see anybody raising their hand, so I'm gonna move on to mayor and council reports and comments.
Well, I'm going to start real quick because this is probably one of the last times I can do this. But I would like to thank the police force. You guys have done an amazing job over this last year, 2 years. I just can't thank you guys enough. And then also Jordan left, but Public Works, they had a big water valve change last week, 2 weeks ago. And I went over, talked to one of the guys. Just can't thank our Public Works Department, can't thank the staff, can't thank everyone enough for this town. It's just awesome. We're lucky to have all this great staff.
You're here. Thanks, Ryan. Anyone else?
Well, I'm gonna be remote the next meeting, so I'm gonna take this opportunity to say it in person. Thank you to Ryan and to Dieter for their service. And congratulations to Angela, who gets to keep her seat, as well as our 2 new counselors that'll be coming on board. But specifically for tonight, Ryan has given 8 years to the town of Basalt and is only leaving because he's termed out. And Dieter, thank you. I think that our police department, our public works, our town staff, everything, this town wouldn't be the same, of course, without any of them, but it also wouldn't be the same if not for people like you who give their time to do this job, this service. And so thank you for your service. And we'll miss you guys.
Anyone else?
Real quick, it's evenings like tonight where you have Tim Goodwin and Carl in here. It makes you appreciate what this community is really about. And most of us don't forget that, but sometimes you need a reminder. And tonight was a nice reminder. So thank all of you that showed up and the young men on that football team for doing what they do. And with any luck at all, they'll stick around and become our future leaders. And, football's not the only activity that young men and young women and young people can engage in. There's a lot of it going on around here, and we need to support it as much as we can, everywhere we can, all the time. And I appreciate it because I was raised by guys like that, and it makes a difference. So when you see them on the street, say hi. Same with these 2 that are leaving. Don't forget about them. He's a big person. You can't forget about him. Thanks, you guys, for coming out. Everybody.
Thanks, Rick. Anyone else?
This community is so great, and just nights like tonight remind me that there are just so many people in this community that are just giving so much of themselves and of their time and talents, and I don't want to raise my kids anywhere else. Thank you to everybody that's here for being a part of Basalt. It's so encouraging to know that there are communities like this.
Sure. All right. Anyone else have anything to add?
It's all
Great
been
comments.
said.
These are like the most,
Yeah,
these are the
this
most
is what it's
memorable
about.
comments of the year.
gonna be crying in 5 minutes.
I know.
We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the manager's report. Item 5, which also includes 5A, Police Lieutenant Pinning. So,
Yes, I would like to start off my manager's report with the pinning ceremony for our new Lieutenant Travis Still.
Thank you all. Yeah, you're good right there. I have my own little proclamation since we're on that kick tonight. So, to all who shall see these present greetings, know ye that reposing special trust and confidence in the fidelity and abilities of Sergeant Travis Still, I do appoint this officer a lieutenant for the Town of Basalt Police Department, to rank as such from the 14th day of April 2026. Effective with his appointment, you are charged to carefully and diligently execute the duties and responsibilities of a lieutenant, and I do strictly direct and require all personnel of lesser grade to render obedience to appropriate order. As a lieutenant, you must set the example for others to emulate. Your conduct and professionalism, both on and off duty, shall be above reproach. You are responsible for the accomplishment of your assigned mission statement and for the safety, professional development, and well-being of the officers in your agency. You will be the embodiment of our institutional core values of integrity, compassion, and professionalism. You will lead your officers with firmness, fairness, and dignity while observing and following the Constitution of the United States, the laws of the state of Colorado, and the ordinances and policies and procedures of the Town of Basalt. Given under my hand at Town of Basalt, Colorado, this 14th day of April, 2026. Congratulations. To do the pinning, I'm gonna have Travis's wife, Christy, and his 2 kids come up. They're right behind me. All right. There's fast. You want to start with the badge? There you go.
The other day I failed, so I'll just, I appreciate the vote of confidence to fill this role, to assist you in leading our team, which is a phenomenal team, which is also in part due to support we get from you guys as council. So I'm super excited for this opportunity, and thanks.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Like a perma smile on my face right now.
good feelings.
Yeah. Okay, I have more on my manager's report. Just wanted to report out that the
Hopefully no
e-bike.
bad news.
I know, it's actually a good news. E-bike safety working group with RAFTA. We attended last week, and Basalt is joining Aspen's campaign in Go Slow, Say Hello. So you'll see more stuff coming out on Go Slow, Say Hello. We're also evaluating how we can effectively regulate e-motos. So that's something that we're working on with the school resource officer. So we're also partnering right now with Eagle County to do a curbside chipping program to encourage residents to clean up their yards and reduce fire danger. So this is funded through Eagle County, but will serve the entire town of Basalt. And pickup will start at the end of May. And then we received 10 proposals for the design and entitlement services for public service building. And we're actually calling it public service facility. And we will have a recommendation to you all by April 28th. We're doing, and then I wanted to remind everyone that Earth Day is next week. So we are hosting an Earth Day celebration So that is on Wednesday, April 22nd from 12 to 6 p.m. And we'll have activities including guest speakers, solar power exhibits, electric car demos, and free composting bins, kids crafts, tree giveaways, and food and music. So stop by from 12 to 6 on Earth Day.
And do you know offhand which time is the elementary school kids coming over? I know that's
So they are going to be doing their performance at 12:30 p.m.
12:30. That's a good one. It's all good, but that's a really good one.
Yes. All right, that is my manager's report.
All right, great. Thank you, Gloria. So we are going to move back into presentations and to 6C, which is a presentation on Cavern Springs Mobile Home Park. And John Fox Rubin.
Sir, if I might, we do have our translator available this evening.
Okay. And yeah, but if anybody else wants to come up and be up here at the front with the mics, they're more than welcome to.
Thank you, everyone. We're just getting prepared. Well, I haven't seen some of you in a while. I've sat in your chairs a long time ago when Rick Stevens was the mayor, and I'm here for one of the issues that we worked on back then, which is preserving community through mobile home parks. And tonight we just want to share with you what we're doing around Cavern Springs Mobile Home Park. We've got couple folks here that live in Cavern Springs. Monica Muniz is the vice president of the Sopris Mountain Collective, which is the organization they've formed to try to become a resident-owned community. And her colleague here, Enidina Garcia, is going to speak and share her story. And then Enid Ritchie, who is another member of Mountain Voices Project. Mountain Voices Project, she's going to tell you a little bit about what it is, for those of you that don't know, has been involved throughout the community with other mobile home communities that are at threat of being displaced, et cetera. So those are the people that are going to speak tonight. Monica's going to go first. There.
Oh, okay. Just pull it, yeah, speak into it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Monica Muniz. I am the Vice President of the Sopris Mountain Collective, which represents the residents of Cavern Springs community, just next to Habitat Restore on this side of Glenwood Springs. There are 98 families. Several have lived here for over 30 years. There are 260 residents, children, disabled children, and adult senior citizens and veterans. 22 of our residents work in Basalt, and 14 of them also work in Algebel. My husband and I moved to the Roaring Fork Valley in 1998, and then moved to the Cavern Springs, which at that time was called HLAZF, in 1991, raising our daughter and caregiving my special needs brother. We enjoy our view of Mount Sopris from our home and our garden, and the longtime connections and the new ones we have developed in our community. I own a small business in Carbondale, and I have served on the Roaring Fork Resource Center Board. I enjoy volunteering in community events in the Roaring Fork Valley. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is Enidina Garcia, and she'll speak.
Mi nombre es Enedina García. He vivido en el Valle por 26 años y 5 años y medio he vivido en Cavern Springs. Tengo 3 hijos que viven conmigo. Uno de ellos sirve en el ejército de los Estados Unidos y ha servido por 5 años. Él viene 3 veces al año a visitarnos y siempre festejamos que él vuelve cada 3 veces al año, 2 veces al año a visitarnos, y él llega a nuestro hogar, que es en Cave Spring. Él tiene sueño de en el futuro volver a Cave Spring a hacer su familia, y pues estamos luchando por conservar nuestro hogar. Tengo otro hijo que trabaja de plomero aquí en Basalt, en una compañía de aquí de Basalt, y yo he trabajado por 6 años aquí en la área de Basalt, limpiando casas. Tengo varias clientas aquí en esta área, que le limpio su casa, conozco su familia, y me encanta vivir en Cave Spring por su cercanía a mi trabajo, y porque es muy seguro y tranquilo. Tengo un árbol muy hermoso fuera en el patio de mi casa que mantenemos fresco en mi patio en los veranos. He llegado a conocer mejor a mis vecinos a través de nuestro trabajo, para convertirnos en una comunidad de residentes propietarios, y acabo de organizar nuestra 5ª colecta comunitaria en el parque este fin de semana pasado. Durante esta colecta hubo más de 20 residentes que estuvieron ayudando, y que hicimos a punto de 5,000 tamales, y pudimos recolectar $6,000, y con ese dinero vamos a usar estos fondos para pagar por nuestros gastos de audiencia preliminar. Gracias por su tiempo, y es una parte de mi historia.
Gracias.
Sí.
Sí.
The interpreter would just request one moment, because that was a little
Good,
bit
you're good.
of an introduction. Good evening. My name is Enedida Garcia. I've lived in the Valley for 26 years, and I've lived in Cavern Springs for 5.5 years. I have 3 children. I have one who serves in the U.S. Army. He's been there for 5 years, and he comes to the area about 3 times a year. Comes about 3 or twice a year. And whenever he comes back to Cavern Springs. And we always celebrate when he comes back and visits. His desire is to be able to have his own family back in Cavern Springs at some point in the future. And we're fighting to be able to retain our home and our community. I also have another son who is a plumber in the Basalt area for a company and based out of Basalt. And I myself have worked for 6 years also in the Basalt area. We have, our home is very calm, and our family enjoys living in the area in Cavern Springs because, well, I really enjoy it because it's close to work, and it's very calm and safe and tranquil. I have a very beautiful tree in my patio. It's very fresh. It's very fresh in my patio that I upkeep during the summertime. And I've had the opportunity to be able to get to know my neighbors better because of work. And we're currently pursuing the ability to be able to establish a residence in our community. Just this past weekend, we had our 5th community collective, just last weekend. And we were, between all of us, we were able to make about 5,000 tamales, and we were able to raise about $6,000. And that's money that we planned on using those funds to be able to pay for the upcoming expenses that we have with the preliminary hearing. There are other residents in the area, some of which are elder, and it encompasses also young individuals and children. Thank you for your time and for listening to part of my story.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Enid Ritchie, a Basalt resident for the past 9.5 years. I joined my daughter and her family in the Roaring Fork Valley. She has been a teacher at Basalt Elementary. Her husband works for SKICO. Both my grandchildren are currently attending BHS. Not knowing anyone in the valley except my family, I reached out as a volunteer in the following organizations: a tutor in English in Action, a library board member for 6 years, and currently a library trust member. As a representative of English in Action, I became a leader in Mountain Voices Project early in its inception. I continued to volunteer in each organization. Tonight, I'm here on behalf of Mountain Voices Project. MVP is a regional organization from Aspen to Parachute, consisting of 20 organizational members from faith, nonprofit, and community sectors to address civic issues. Early on, we had structured small group community conversations where deep concerns bubbled up. We took action. Examples are: MVP was instrumental in the early childhood tax initiative on both the ballot and its successful passing. During COVID, a housing crisis occurred. Tenants were unable to pay rent due to the U.S. closing down during the pandemic. Property owners were unable to pay their property bills, and we helped them both, the renters and the property owners, to find the money they needed to survive through the pandemic. Currently, we are dealing with a different community issue regarding housing. The next speaker, John, will clarify the issue and the needs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Enid.
I also want to recognize Ellen Dubé in the audience here. She's a member of Mountain Voices Project as a leader from the Snowmass Chapel. We have leaders throughout the community from our member organizations. My member organization is the Aspen Jewish Congregation, so I act as a leader and bring their perspective to our community conversations. The thing that you may not know about me, a lot of you probably don't, Rick might, I lived in Aspen Village when I was 7 years old for a few years, and it was a wonderful experience. And that's probably where my passion for preserving mobile home communities came from. Historically, they've been a very affordable, a market-based affordable solution for housing in this community. There are over 50 mobile home parks between Parachute and Aspen, and about 25% of the people you see, or maybe you don't see, but that do the work for us, with us, live in mobile homes in this community. We are concerned that the privatization, the hedge funds, the private equity funds that have been pretty active are getting even more active. There was an article in the paper recently about 7 parks from Rifle to Grand Junction that all got purchased by one entity. That's really challenging because if you live in one of those parks and the rents go up, you don't really have another place to go, even with the legislation that's been advancing in the state. The state has been very proactive in trying to make a difference here, but the legislation is not quite there. So Mountain Voices Project has also been involved in some policy papers to help strengthen the legislation. And there's 2 bills that are being pushed right now that would continue to help strengthen it. But it's still not there. And meanwhile, Cavern Springs, this is the second time they've been sold under the new opportunity to purchase law. I worked with them the first time they got the notice in 2019, and they were being sold for $18 million, and we couldn't come up with the financing to keep the rents at all from doubling. And so the residents turned that opportunity down. There was not wide community support for that. Today, there's a lot more community support. We've already received some community support from some municipalities. Pickens County's weighing in on it tomorrow. We presented in front of Garfield County, and to be determined if we can get anything from them. However, their housing authority is potentially participating as a special limited partner, which would allow for property tax abatement. So we're really trying to weave together the right equity that would come in as a subsidy and the right lending from what's called a CDFI lender, Community Development Financial Institution lender. There's a company called Rock USA, which is the primary lender that helped the 2 parks already in this community, actually 3 in this community, Basalt, Carbondale, and 1 in Glenwood already. And so we're hoping to follow that with them, and another one called IDF, Impact Development Fund, out of the Front Range, that has been active in a couple of the capital stacks in our community. So the reason we're here tonight is just to educate you, let you know what we're up to. Mountain Voices Project has also created a fund at the Aspen Community Foundation that funds legal support for residents like Cavern Springs, but also for other communities. Our goal at Mountain Voices Project is not to be solving this one at a time, but is to really to get things like a tax initiative that can cover preservation of communities. There's a fund called the Prop 123 Fund at the state level that is designed for preservation and construction of new affordable housing. But in the Colorado Sun recently, there was an article that only 0.2, or was it was actually 0.02% of the funds in Prop 123 have gone towards preserving existing units. And when you look at the bang for your buck, your ROI on preserving units, in this case, we're looking for about an $8 million total community investment for approximately 100 mobile homes. So that's $80,000 per mobile home saved from uncertain future and most likely doubling rents if the Cavern Springs residents do not prevail in purchasing and becoming a resident-owned community. So that's pretty much why we're here today, is to let you know what we're up to. And we'd love support in raising this capital. We're talking to businesses, we're talking to philanthropists. We're also looking at creating a loan fund where people who may not be able to donate but could put some of their capital into a loan fund that would probably be managed by another CDFI or a local institution, where your money would only earn 3% per year, but that's a possibility as well. So we're trying to be very creative to finance this community. Any questions? And I don't know what was in your packet. Did you end up putting in the slide deck in the packet?
Yeah,
okay,
the
so
slide deck's in the packet, yeah.
yeah, so you can review that, and if you have questions, we're more than happy to answer.
This is good, kind of getting the talk track open, because everybody read the slides, but kind of getting the commentary, I think, is important. I mean, I read that Colorado Sun article as well, and that's what just struck me is with limited resources for affordable housing, what can we do? And this is, I'm not asking you to, unless you have a great idea, but like, we need to change the focus to be a little more balanced between existing housing and construction. It seems like there's a lot of a push, like let's have nonprofits be able to develop inexpensively. Let's, density or transit, that's great. We also have a lot of housing that's kind of affordable by design that we need to preserve. It's going to be a lot more expeditious and efficient with money to make that stay affordable. And that's what just kind of confounds me, is why we're not focusing on that more. So I don't know, I mean, that's kind of a rhetorical question of sorts, but that's what strikes me with this, because Cavern Springs is one of many. Like you said, was it 50? It's 40.
50. And
it's a parachute,
I
right?
would say about 8 to 10 have been preserved. So when I say 50, it includes Smuggler Mobile Home Park in Aspen. And so as you get closer down here, almost all of them have been preserved one way or another. Either it's RO or, Woody Creek is actually a metro district that manages it instead of an HOA. Over here, we're lucky there's a land use restriction on the Roaring Fork Mobile Home Park, but that's been slated for development a couple times when a developer bought the parcel. And I don't know the current status of it. I know that's something of long-term interest for you all as well, is how do we balance the needs there?
Thanks. Other questions or comments for the team here?
Thank you for taking the time to come out and share about your community, to let us know what you're doing to preserve it.
Are there specific things, like, if there, web pages, social media, like, the things that we can do to, help?
Yeah, the what is it called? The Housing Justice Fund. It's a special interest fund at the Aspen Community Foundation. We have readily raised over $100,000 with small donations already to that. And so that's a great thing where anyone in the community can play a role, not just for Cavern Springs, but for the ongoing work that's going to need to occur. We are going to be talking to businesses. We're just starting the philanthropic side. We've been working pretty heavily on the municipal side with commitments from Carbondale, Snowmass Village, City of Glenwood Springs. City of Aspen has said yes to some amount. They haven't determined the amount yet. And then Pickens County and Eagle County will be approaching as well. So now that those conversations are in flight for different communities, our target there is about $6 million. And April Long of the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition is going to manage the municipal and county piece of the work, as she's done before, and has done an incredible job with that. And then we're going to tap our networks for the business community. And the business community rose to the challenge last time, and it's very hard on the heels of that for all of us to just keep doing it. So we're trying to expand that business community network.
Good.
So anything you can do, and touch base with me if you have ideas, and we're trying to be creative and keep it moving forward. We've talked with RAFTA, we've talked with all sorts of interested organizations that have already invested in affordable housing. And we're looking at flexible ways for things like buying the opportunity if a mobile home needs to be sold, for a business to be able to purchase it for their staff, which actually worked with Garfield County and Habitat for Humanity. That approach helped Garfield County get their first affordable housing units that were paid for by the government, which was a big step for them.
Yeah. I actually watched the RAFTA presentation, and I was really interested by coming up with creative ways to try and figure out more pieces to that capital stack. And I just want to say thank you for being here, Monica and Elena. Gracias por estar aquí esta noche. Your stories are important to hear, and su y sus hijos es un importante parte de nuestra comunidad, en particular su hijo que trabaja en Basalt. So muchas gracias. And I know we're in a tight place for funding, but I think thinking creatively and trying to see where we can help elevate your stories is really important.
Every bit helps. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thanks for coming out. Good luck. All right. We have council actions next. And the first one, the only one, is item 7A, which is a resolution number 20, series of 2026. Resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, allocating funds from the town's short-term rental regulatory fee and lodging tax fund toward acquisition of a deed restriction on a free market unit at 720 Lakeside Drive in partnership with Eagle County. And James, you're up for this one.
Yeah, thank you. As the mayor indicated, this item is a resolution to allocate funds to participate in a buy-down of a deed restriction in partnership with Eagle County on the free market unit at 720 Lakeside Drive. The council previously approved the framework for a prior buy-down potential that didn't go through at that time, and now we have this new opportunity at 720 Lakeside Drive. The town's contribution would be $97,500, which equates to 15% of the purchase price, and Eagle County would be putting in 15% of the purchase price as well. The resolution would allocate approximately $80,000 from the town's short-term regulatory fee, which is what we have gained this year from the regulatory fee. And then the remainder would be made up from the additional lodging tax funds that were granted by the voters this past election. And so staff believes that this is a good opportunity to increase the number of buy-downs that we have in the town of Basalt. It is within the town's boundaries, so staff would suggest approving the resolution to allocate the funds towards the buy-down so that we can participate with Eagle County in this buy-down scenario. Jeff, do you have anything to add? We've been working with Eagle County staff on kind of the framework of the buy-down a bit, and so we're still kind of talking to them about that, but staff would suggest allocating the funds.
Yeah, I think you covered it.
How does that work on the purchase of the unit? I assume this unit's for sale. The person who wants to buy it has applied for the benefit, is getting the benefit, and then what is their role and responsibility beyond that other than to just sign it off as a deed restricted unit? Do they still have to come up with 20% of the down that's left, or how does that all flow through?
You know, in terms of, you know, what would the buyer have to come up with for down payment and so forth, I think it might vary. I don't know that it's prescribed. Harper might be the best one to answer this, having gone through this, but, or all the way to the, you know, the near finish line. I don't know, do you want to, can you help with that a little bit?
Yeah, so trying to recollect my memory, but I think the buy down it's 30%. So the buyers has to put in at least 3% of their own funds, and however they come up with that is up to them. But typically, the Good Deeds program requires that the buyer put in some of their own equity so that they have some teeth in it. And then between Eagle and the town of Basalt, then they provide the rest of the funds for the initial down payment.
And I think it's a 3 to 5% range for the actual purchaser to put down, and it's on a case-by-case basis. It's my understanding.
And then Eagle County and the town, in exchange for the down payment, get the deed restriction to preserve the affordability of the unit.
And it comes with a 3% appreciation cap on an annual basis, and a requirement that they be a full-time employee, the next purchaser as well.
I had a question on the funding source to see if a different scenario we could perhaps explore. I know in the past, we had $100,000 from the Basalt Forward 2030 money budgeted for, I think even last year, budgeted for deed buy downs. And that was a sticking point with West Mountain as far as a contribution, because it could only be used within, because of the ballot language, only could be used within the town limits. So what I would like to explore is looking at taking, if we didn't use that 100,000 last year, I think we were considering that for the last deed buy down, even that 100,000, using that for this purchase and the funds that we have from the short-term rental fees and lodging tax, because they have greater flexibility. Could we use that instead for West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition and like a regional effort? Because that's going to be recurring. We're a member, and, I know Angel and now you, Gloria, sit on that board representing Basalt, but I'm also there for RAFTA, so I know that we don't kind of have a completely free and clear funding source for them up until this point, but we could use this money for that, and we could use Basalt Forward 2030 money potentially for this deed buy down, because that's important too, but it's in the town limits, so it would fit better. I wanted to see if that was feasible and what others thought.
Well, and so for a while, we've been telling West Mountain, oh, we can't give more, our hands are tied, because this money sits in a pot that is tied to this ballot language. And so it has to be used within the boundary of Basalt. And so, and David and I, are in agreement on this, that why not use that money that is so restricted for this specific purpose for which it was intended, and free up the other funds, the STR and the lodging funds, that aren't as restricted for other use to, it can be what we give to West Mountain as our annual commitment, because then it can be used outside of the boundaries of Basalt.
I think that makes a lot of
Sure,
sense.
Doug has some opinions on that.
Yeah,
Or
I mean,
Jeff,
yeah.
about like the specific uses of funds and where they are in the ballot language and.
I'll let you speak to where this money lives in the budget. I can speak to the restrictions, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not really in my opinion. I think it's like it's true that the ordinance for the short-term regulatory fees can be used at the sole discretion of council. So it's quite wide aperture on how the funds can be used. I believe that's similar to the lodging tax as well. And it is true that we have about, right now, 83,000 or so collected in short-term regulatory fees. We have that in the books. And I'm anticipating that we would likely get somewhere between $200,000 to $250,000 of additional lodging taxes for the 2% lift that we received in the fall. So those I feel pretty good about those numbers. I would caution using the Basalt Forward money is really the bond money. We had taxable and a tax-exempt offering. The tax-exempt money for the bonds went for Midland. The taxable bond offering went for affordable housing in Green. And this council had, and this was before me, had some sort of allocation that 25% of that should go to Green and 75% should go to affordable housing. So we've really been dividing up the money, in my mind, 75% affordable, 25% Green. So right now, I would say to you that we do have money in the taxable bond money to use for this purpose. My caution would be is that we're looking at funding Parcel 9. Parcel 9 Rugby Field has 16 units, has a funding gap potentially $8 million. And that's, it could be more, could be less, but it's looking at now, there's two different people looked at it at the same time and both came up with $8 million. So I'm thinking, it's probably going to be $8 million. So it would be good to use, in my view, of closing that gap, the bond money. And that bond money would be Parcel 9. Now, if you use the bond money, as we're referring to as Basalt Forward money, for this deed buy down, that's just another $100,000 or so you won't have. So that would be just laying it out. That's how I would view it. It's council's decision about how it's used. Just kind of think those are all the facts as I see the field.
Well, it's not necessarily money we wouldn't have, because we could then apply STR and lodging tax money to parcel 9 as well.
That's true. And money is fungible. That's true.
I guess that's our point, is that the bond money is highly restrictive,
It is.
whereas the other revenue sources are less so. So if we have a kind of rare opportunity to apply the bond money, I don't know. you
Within
know,
the town limits.
Within the town limits, which obviously parcel 9 is too, parcel 9 is as well, but I guess, I've been sitting in West Mountain in these meetings for 2 years, and we've been saying, we wish we could do more, but we can't, because this bond money
Right.
can't be used outside, and then here we are using other funds to fund exactly what we have been waiting for the opportunity to use the bond money to fund.
Right.
So it's also just a little bit contradictory, to what we've been saying.
I would agree. I mean, and that was one of the big reasons I wanted to support, and I supported the short-term rental fee, is I wanted to have another lever, another source to use at the regional level. I mean, that was a big driver for that. I don't think I'm the only one in that case. I know we have a gap. We're gonna have to find a partner. I mean, and we're probably gonna talk about that at some point, but this is, again, it comes to that balance too of, building versus preserving existing as well.
And I think the related, just Jeff opine on this one, and again, my view is that, I don't believe it's been written anywhere that it was somewhat arbitrary how the money was divvied up between green and affordable housing. I don't think that's really ordained anywhere, and I think the bond offering contemplated the construct of both of them and did not specifically call out that money. We have had one green project, and that was the installation of the solar roofs at basically the high school and the middle school.
Yeah.
And we don't have anything on deck to use that money for.
So you could, in theory,
question- so the
devote
question is-
100% of the bond money to
exactly.
parcel-
So could we
to-
use the green money?
Yeah.
And again, that's not a decision for me to make, but that would open up the available
I talk with my
funds.
hands too. It's all good.
Right?
You'd steal the green money?
So that's
We're
the
talking
only
about
point.
taking the green money.
What?
No, we're
I get, we're moving the money. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, this is such semantics. Like, I get it. I'm sure we can figure it out on the back end.
policy.
I think we all agree on it. We're gonna talk ourselves in a circle. I would say, whatever you want, we'll tell Doug, he'll get it done, and we'll vote on it. Let's go.
On the bond money, I'd have to go back and look at this, but, I mean, it's not in the ballot question, but it was specifically, I know, contemplated how that money would be allocated between the three purposes at the time it was put forward, because there was, rough estimates for calculations of the work on Midland and so on and so forth. And so, I don't recall if that was in like recitals to the ordinance that submitted the ballot question or not, but just before we rush into reallocating money related for green purposes, I just would want to take a look.
And we're not doing that
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah.
We
That
have
was like
either,
an example, but I don't think we're looking to do that.
we're gonna have either an 8 million or an $8.1 million gap. That's a different kettle of fish than that's another conversation. I think for tonight, the 100,000 is, or so is what we gotta figure out if we wanna source that from the bond money, and I would support doing that.
Yeah. I'm on board.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 20, series of 2026, with the change of the money coming from the bond fund instead of
STR and lodging.
the SDR and lodging tax.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Okay, let's begin with Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupré Bouchard,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
As a caveat, though, I think that, just running numbers in my head here, if someone was to come in with $1.5 million purchase and apply for 30% from the fund, they would get $450,000 if Eagle County and Basalt still agreed to the same policy. Where's the cap? On how fast can this 6 million be exhausted if people that are willing in this, different market, to come in and, offer their home up for sale with a deed restriction attached with the current benefit attached, and then not have to, and then the purchaser doesn't have to come up, the purchaser just has to qualify for the 70% of the original purchase price with no down payment. It's kind of a slippery slope, I think, at the end of the day, and the bond proceeds are $6 million, that's it.
Well, we spent a
Yeah,
bunch
I mean,
already.
Well, we don't have 6 million anymore.
It's a fair point. I mean, but in my mind, we had 100,000 that we've been budgeting for at least 1, if not 2 years.
Right.
And now we've allocated that. So if there are more requests for deed restrictions, we're gonna have a different conversation because there is no more money budgeted. This was our
Right.
in-town.
Potentially, I think there is.
But that would be a different,
Yeah.
we'd have to basically be reappropriating or appropriating additional funds. So,
But back to the original intent though, is that what this decision in my mind allows us to do is to, if the council wanted to, give more to West Mountain, up their contribution to West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition,
Comes from another place.
because it can come from STR and lodging fees, which has a broader use allowance, and that can still help buy down houses outside of the town boundaries. So it doesn't that's the whole point, is that we don't have to use the bond money. It's very unusual, I think, to find someone that can afford a mortgage on $1 million, which is what the homeowner still has to do, I think is the limiting factor.
On the 1.5.
On the, yes.
it's narrow, market for that.
Anyways.
All right. Well, thank you all. And next up, we have an executive session, so I entertain a motion there.
Mayor, move the town council enter executive session to discuss personnel matters in accordance to CRS 24-6-402 4F, more specifically, town manager review.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So thank you very much. We're going to move into executive session in a moment. When that is, and so we're going to cut the TV feed. When that is over, the meeting will be adjourned. So those watching online, good night, and take a few moments here to set up.